Hello and welcome back to the Smashy Business Show. I am Farah Bashir and
25th of June 2024. How are you, Farah?
I'm good. It's crazy how when the year started, the first 3 months passed by so slow. And then it just goes very fast and it's I cannot keep up.
Yeah.
I really cannot keep up. I'm very scared and worried.
Yeah, the year's flying, absolutely. What are we talking about today?
So for today, I'll be giving you the headlines briefly, and then we're going to be talking about CEO Elie Habib shares OSN plus rebuild story in Middle Eastern Tech Milestone. Then as well, UAE downgrades 2024 inflation forecast to 2.3%, and Dubai real estate market breaks cycle. Of course, so let's talk about OSN.
We can jump into the stories then.
So with OSN, it's been 120 days only, and they are rebuilding.
Yeah, so let's give a bit of background here. So basically, OSN originally was a different company, and then became Orbit Showtime, and it's known over the years it was cable TV. So when you came to the region, you had options, and OSN was one of the options on top of your terrestrial TV. They had movies, they had sports, kind of moved away from sports. They were owned by a company called Kipco in Kuwait. And so they were chugging along, navigating the cord-cutting trends in the US and all that sort of stuff. And then Anghami, built by a couple of hundred engineers in Beirut, listed on the stock market. NASDAQ, famed Anghami story, we talk about it a lot. Eddie Maroon, Elie Habib, and then they basically went public, and Elie was sitting on the OSN boards, and OSN decided to buy them out, I guess, and use that 50 million quid that they were buying them out to delist them. They haven't delisted on the stock market yet, but it's interesting, Farah, you use the name OSN. It's actually OSN Plus. And what they've done is, if you see OSN Plus on the app, it's powered by Anghami, because OSN Plus used to be Wavo. It used to be their streaming service.
Yes.
And OSN run them as separate business. So they haven't cannibalized their cable TV. They still have cable TV, but they have a streaming service that used to be Wavo, if you remember. And now OSN Plus was a streaming service. But OSN Plus, for the last few years, we're running off licensed technology, because OSN in the region, we're good at content, we're good at marketing, we're good at all these sort of things, but they license the technology from a few different providers, Comcast and New Line, Endeavor in the US. They also license the content from HBO, so they were paying a lot of money for tech and content. Why the Anghami acquisition was strategic is because Anghami, although they're only music, they had built the basis of streaming technology apps. I remember Elie told me they built all the smart TV apps, they just don't have any video, because on smart TVs we don't listen to music.
That's true.
So when OSN bought this deal, they said, okay, well, we'll keep paying for HBO content, and we'll keep paying for the premium content because they're a premium streaming service. But let's do the tech ourselves. And clearly what's happened here now in 3 months and 120 days, they basically in-housed the technology on the back of Anghami's streaming tech for video. So now OSN Plus, probably no one will notice the difference, because the interface, the UX UI, is probably the same, but the back end is now technology built in Lebanon, in Abu Dhabi, for the region, which will streamline and save so much costs.
I agree. Actually, funny thing, I had an internship done at OSN, and I was working for Wavo, and that talk was there because with Wavo, as you said, it was not really blooming as they wanted it to bloom, but it's a very smart thing for them to be acquired by Anghami, and they have their own content right now as well. With I remember working on a show of it's families.
Family Feud, is it?
It's not Family Feud. It's families invite other families, and then it's they rate each other, and then someone
one
wins.
Of these dining experiences.
It was done back in 2019.
Yeah, it's nice to see all the formats. They've definitely done a few interesting things. They did Suits in Egypt, and they did a few other things that was interesting.
Exactly. So I mean, the whole point of it is the fact that OSN had managed to rapidly build and integrate the streaming platform, as you said, with Anghami's technology, which I think is very very smart of them. It's honestly, I'm just like looking forward to what Anghami or OSN actually has in store. But let's jump to a next story, which is honestly amazing for everyone who lives in the UAE and specifically Dubai. The UAE's central bank has revised its inflation forecast for this year down to 2.3% from earlier from 2.5 to 2.3, which by the way, I would say it is like it's great.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of like the revision is attributed to slower the anticipated rises in commodity costs, incomes, and rents as well, which everyone has been waiting for after the rent prices have gone really up.
Yeah,
But
we'll talk about the rent price as well. I
Yes.
think, what do people take into consideration? The cost of living, and we have high interest rates.
Yes.
Therefore, our mortgages or any interest or any debt that people have are paying higher interest rates. This is on the back of, these are kind of fiscal policies and things that the financial regulators have put in place. The UAE is pegged to the dollar, so there's pegged to what the Fed's Chairman Powell, what he decides is the interest rate. And it was around 0 around the pandemic, and then it went up to, it was increasing different percentage points every quarter, like 0.5 and 1%. So it became the highest interest rates in years. He hasn't started bringing it down yet, but the ECB, the European Central Bank, did start to bring that back. I think that's Chairman Lagarde. I think they started to bring it down. So that was a milestone last week. We're waiting for the US to start their tapering, and they're bringing down their interest rates, and we do expect that to happen in the next 12 to 18 months. However, that's one thing, that's interest rates. Inflation, what is inflation? There's another metric, Farah, called CPI, Consumer Price Index, and sometimes people get kind of mixed up on this stuff, right? People might say, okay, but the cost of milk has gone up 30%, but the cost of property has gone up. Yeah, that's CPI, that's Consumer Price Index. Inflation itself is to do with the value of the currency overall across all sectors in the market. So some people will say, hang on, there's no way that inflation is only 2% in the UAE because my rent has gone up, or X has gone up. But that's only part of the calculation.
That is true.
And these numbers are as official and as regulated and as tested as anywhere. So they are actually true. But, we have inflation of 15, 20, 30% in Egypt. We've got it in different places. But the fact that that the UAE has inflation down under 2.5% for this year, the US was up at 7, 8% a few years ago. So the fact that we have it down at this does show that it is competitive. Now, obviously, there's lots of stories and lots of articles that Dubai and the UAE is expensive capital city, which is fine. The best cities in the world are expensive. But I think people need to, look at these numbers and understand that this is true economic data.
And by the way, as well, like regarding inflation, it was 3.4% in the first quarter in Dubai because it was really high. And then it went to 3.9 in April, and now it's 2.5, which, by the way, like you can see the differences they're very significant.
Yeah,
so
that's a good
people
point.
are expecting as well, like the rent prices to go down with it. But I really highly doubt that because like housing costs, they make up to 40.7%. Of the consumer basket increased by 6.5 annually in April. And it's not only that, like a lot of my family and friends had a lot of like the rent costs went highly up, like, and it was very like recognizably, like it went really by up 3%. Someone who used to pay like 60K per year for rent, it got like to 80% per year, which is kind of like, I would say I would understand. However, most other categories of Dubai's consumer basket saw stable or decreasing inflation rates in April in 2024, except for clothing, health, recreation, and restaurants and accommodation, which was mentioned.
Which is exactly what the point you were making, Farah, about rental prices. Yeah, look, I think it takes into all sectors. I think, again, the next story we'll talk about Dubai bucking trend, but if we just focus on inflation for a second, UAE is a very competitive economy. We had a story about the more millionaires are moving here than anywhere else.
Yes.
I think net 6,700 here, whereas China is down 9,000. Yes. It's very competitive, and there was a story about FDI, foreign direct investment, grew 35% last year. That's huge. I remember years ago interviewing the head of FDI in Dubai, gentleman, Mr. Al Ghagari, and the investment and the strategy around FDI is similar to all the things that the UAE set their focus on. They want to be the highest, you know, in many things, and you know, having foreign direct investment, having low inflation. We're just having the first year that corporates will be paying corporate tax, and it's just making everything more regulated, more competitive, and a more robust economy going round. So this idea, yes, it is things are a little bit of a bubble. What goes up must go down, but the GDP growth this year, you know, I think is around 3 or 4%. That's sustainable. Like 8-9% isn't sustainable, but there's no talk of a recession. There's no talk of declining GDP, and I think this sort of healthy, keeping inflation low shows. I guess it's part of all the themes, Farah, that we are back. You know, we're back from the pandemic. Tourist numbers are up. Inflation's back down. Interest rates are the last thing to come down that we're all waiting for.
I mean, I think everyone is waiting for the rent prices to go down with the inflation.
Yeah, but from a business point of view, I think it's related to interest rates, because if you think about it, with interest rates really high, investors aren't likely to invest in startups and other things, because why if you've got a chunk of investment and you're getting 7-8% from a sukuk or a bank, then why take the risk with the? So what we kind of, the last thing we kind of need now that we have inflation coming down, we kind of need the interest rates to come down, so to increase the capital investment and then the cost of debt as well. Like businesses need capital to grow, and at the moment the cost of debt is too high.
So technically, in summary, like the UAE Central Bank has lowered its inflation forecast. However, I really think regarding, you did mention how the story of billionaires are coming to the UAE.
Yeah, millionaires, yeah.
And we did discuss this on the Love and Dubai show, me and Casey. And we talked about how, like, because if you are a millionaire, would you invest in your country if they are taking tax away from you?
That's one of the incentives of people to move here, because there isn't tax.
100%.
Absolutely. So it is interesting. It's competitive. There's no income tax, of course. We do have VAT, and that's only a few years in, and now we've added corporate tax.
Exactly, and honestly, like the inflation decrease to 2.3%, I think is very significant, and people maybe are expecting it to not go down more, but for other things to follow, which leads us to our next story. So Dubai's real estate market has defied expectations of a slowdown, meaning people are disappointed. They were expecting that the real estate market to go down. However, it did not really go down this time, which is very disappointing to a lot of people. It indicated a possible departure from its historical boom and bust cycles. Of course.
Yeah, I think it's a positive sign for people. I wouldn't say it's disappointing because investors don't want it to drop, like business people don't want it to drop. And you know, over Ramadan we had the pleasure of being invited to Hussein Sojani of the Damak Group's home for iftar, and he sat at the table with us and told us that he's seen a slowdown. I think he hasn't seen a drop, but just the pace of activity is slowing. And there's, you know, property is huge here. There's lots of podcasts, there's lots of experts. I won't sort of go into it in too much detail. I know my limitations. I'm being a property analyst. So, you know, the story basically is reported by Bloomberg, and it just shows that it's bucked the trend, that the real estate prices are still continuing upward trend.
But if inflation is going down and people are really struggling, shouldn't as well prices go down? That's the thing, which, by the way, boggles my mind a lot. Like, I think about it all the time, and we talk about it whenever I'm with my family. Like, if everything is going up, prices are going up, then why are, you know, like the rents not going down? Why is property still going up?
Yeah, I think it's a good sign. Like, if it just shows that, you know, lots of times in the past, it mentions in the article that a departure from the historical boom and bust cycle. So it means that the investments are more secure, because in the past, if you invested in property here, it was more volatile, and now it's more secure that it's holding its value at a sustainable rate. So I think it's a really good sign that it's bucking the trend, and there isn't a big crash in the property market. Inshallah, it'll stay that way, that there won't be a big drop. So, you know, people's investments. There's a big story as well, like that it's kind of going viral on Twitter. I think we knew about it before, but Ronaldo spent about $30 million on a place in Bulgaria. And you know, signs like that, we've always had the headlines, we've always had the celebs, we've always had those fees. But like signs that these property places are holding their value is good for the overall business investor and overall, and the returns and the yields on the rents and things like that as well.
I mean, it is good for investors,
but
it's not good for. Of course, you know, it's very good for investors, and which is, by the way, why I would want to invest. I am looking for like an investment. However, if I would want to play the devil's advocate here, it's not good for people who are actually like renting and buying.
Why not? Because
it's getting high.
Yeah, but
prices are really getting high.
Yeah, but there's other places to live. Like, if you have an abundance mindset, if you have a growth mindset, you can start with where is affordable. Like a year or two ago, if you always had that attitude, a year or two ago, property prices around Dubai South were really low, and then when Dubai World Central was announced officially, they went up 30%. So, you know, we're seeing a boom in Ras Al Khaimah. If you really believe in the UAE, you'll find value. There's places for value. There's lots of off-plan places. There's lots of things, you know, and I think that's the same mindset as a business person and an owner or not. You know, like, yes, relatively things have changed. But maybe at the time, maybe 2020 and times like that, things were undervalued.
That's true.
And people who paid for something at that time shouldn't necessarily expect that they're going to have that forever per se. But I think we have to look at this in a positive, like the fact that the property that they were predicting it to drop this year and it hasn't, is just really good for the overall economy.
I agree, by the way, because a lot of people are still expecting for a drop in the next year. However, in 2023, the property reached a record of $74 billion, which is a huge number. So I don't think that people should expect it to drop in the upcoming year. However, you know, if you are looking for an investment, I think it's like your time to shine. It's your time to shine, and honestly, it is a good investment, as Richard has mentioned. You know, it only increases because it's a stable market.
Yeah, but like I do think there's definitely a bit of a bubble around property here because it has gone up too much. But I just hope that it doesn't crash like it has before. Why? Because in New York and Miami and LA, properties don't crash.
That's
true, you know, in London it doesn't, and Hong Kong and. So I think what we want is we want to slow down. Like growing 30, 40, 50% year over year isn't sustainable, but growing 2-3% year over year is sustainable, and that's really what we want across these sectors. I
agree, and by the way, the growth that we are talking about right now is like it's only the first quarter of the year, and it has already, by the way, scored $24 billion. Which is as well a huge number. So I cannot imagine like what's going to be by the end of the year. I think it's going to be like a very big number. And as well, by the way, guys, the numbers, it's not only fueled, it's fueled by several other factors, such as, like, as Richard mentioned, wealthy investors, which they are getting more to the UAE, crypto millionaires, foreigners that are attracted by the government's pandemic response, and the UAE, how it's like very fast with the flood, the pandemic, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah,
it's just very exciting.
No, you're right. Yeah, good to have your views on this, and I think it is interesting to hear all perspectives on the economy and on property and things like that. It's definitely a dynamic, vibrant market, even as we approach the hot summer months. Exactly.
And I was telling Casey as well that when we were talking about the UAE getting a lot of millionaires to the country, we were sitting with my family and we were all talking about how the UAE actually has like a business, I would say, mindset. Let me call it mindset, because like we were talking about how like the leaves and the summer breaks for children and everything is calculated, because when, let's say, like if with leaves, more people will be buying more and putting more to the country, whether they're going for a staycation or whether they are traveling and using the airlines and so on, which increases as well the country's economy. So with the country's economy going up, I think as well the rent prices are going to go up, and rent and everything's going to go, real estate's going to go up. So don't really hope for something that's going to go down. But yeah, well, and that's it for today's episode, you guys.
Thanks a lot, guys. We'll be back tomorrow.
Yes, and don't forget to go in podcast form if you guys miss out the show. See you tomorrow, same time, same place.
Bye, guys. That was good.